Navy shirt.
Oh, perfect. And then they don't know.
Originally, there was a little scheduling snafu a couple weeks ago, and so I got here, I was all excited, and then our other speaker was just as good. So that's one of the things I love about this. So now Dan is going to speak with us today, and one of the great things I love about Dan is just that every time I see him, he seems to have a smile on his face. I think that's really important in this program is to show that, I mean, for me, that was one of the biggest things about getting back into the flow of things. I felt trapped, and it felt like, wow, when I try and go out and be a normal person, I feel like I can't do it. And Dan has showed me that you can, because he's always in the flow of things. So he brings that sunshine, and he loves on people, and we're just glad to have him. So with that being said, Dan, it's our speaker, Dan Kay.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Dan. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety birthday is July 4th, 2001. I know that's an odd day to quit drinking, but I didn't pick it. It was all my higher power. And I'll get to that eventually. I grew up I was born and raised in Deer Lodge, Montana, and it was a great town to grow up in. I can remember some pretty traumatic things from my early childhood that I think really affected whether or not I became an alcoholic. The first thing I remember was my little sister. She had a bone disease, and they had her in a leg brace. And I just remember feeling like I needed to protect her. I needed to take care of her. I was identifying myself as an empath and a compassionate and empathetic person right from the start. And I just remember feeling like I wanted to fix her. And I carried that all through my life. And I was trying to fix everybody else except myself. And then I think that caused some trauma in my life, because I think it gave me a confusion about what my role was. You know, I couldn't stay in my own lane. I was thinking I had to take responsibility for others. And then I had another experience. My parents had bought me this like a synthetic fiber little like football jacket, and we were going to this storage unit, and there was a torchlight excuse me, I got a frog here. There was a torchlight lamp sitting there, and I wanted to see if I could make the letters on the coat shine on the ceiling. So I put it over the top of this lamp, and it melted it. And I can remember getting yelled at and spanked for it, you know, and I was crying already. I was upset because I was hurt that I had, you know, ruined this coat. And I really needed a hug. And instead I got punished, you know, and I think that started a trauma feeling for me that I kind of carried through my whole life. And there was another incident that happened. I had appendicitis when I was 2.5 years old, and I ended up in the hospital. It had ruptured, and they operated on me. And I remember they gave me ether to put me out. And I woke up after I've got this huge scar that keeps one side of my belly like in and the other side out. It's just weird. But I woke up throwing up, and they had me in a crib. And I just remember being upset because I wasn't a baby, and they had me in a crib. That was how I identified all the time when I was young. I always felt like things weren't happening the way I wanted them to. Things weren't going the way I wanted them to. I didn't have any control over what was happening. And so I just kind of grew up with this confusion. And I also had this feeling like I was outside my body a lot of the time, kind of looking down and not really having any control over what was happening in my life. And we got another traumatic experience. This was between 2nd and 3rd grade. We were bugging my mom to go fishing, and we finally talked her into it. And I had a 5-week-old sister that was laying on the front seat of the car, and we had just pulled up on the highway, and this lady was coming 100 miles an hour and went across the center line and hit us head on. And my little sister was killed. And we never grieved that as a family. we just never really talked about it much. You know, it was like it didn't happen, you know. You could feel the grief, you could see it, but we just never dealt with it. And that set the tone for my whole life. I didn't know what to do with feelings, so I just started burying them. Just started finding ways to stuff them. And it just got worse, you know. Even in school, I remember in third grade, the teacher was kind of a disciplinarian, and I just remember feeling like she was singling me out. You know, she was picking on me, and she wasn't. She treated other people the same way. And that kind of affected me too. And I just always kind of felt like there was something off with me. And I was told that I had great potential. I didn't like hearing that because that meant I was going to have to perform. And I was basically lazy and procrastinator. And then as I went through school, junior high, I remember they were having school elections. I was an 8th grader and I really wanted to be class president. So I wanted to be nominated for it and I wasn't. And I was upset about that, you know, hurt. And then I didn't get nominated for the vice president, but I got nominated for what? So I got nominated for secretary, and that was actually the most important position in the whole thing. And it really grew me up. But I was just upset that, you know, I didn't get my way. I had an expectation. And so all through my school experience, I had high potential, but low performance. And I knew that. I knew that I wasn't performing well enough. Anyhow, I'm going to fast forward here. I don't want to spend too much time on my drunkalog. I just wanted to, sorry. I'm gonna read this prayer here. I think it's gonna help me settle down a little here. It's a set aside prayer. God, please set aside everything that we think we know about ourselves, the book, sobriety, and the 12 steps, and you, God. God, please help each and every one of us have an open mind so we may have a new experience and discover the truth. So anyhow, I started having trouble with discipline at a pretty early age. And I can remember going to a wedding reception in Missoula here. Wasn't nervous before I got here, and now all of a sudden I just got nervous. I don't know what that's all about. I think a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about is really emotional, and that's a huge part of who I am. And oh, thanks. Okay. Anyhow, it's just my story, so I'll keep going here. I can remember my Uncle Reuben asked me how old I was, and I said, you know, 16. And he said, you're old enough. And so he mixed me up a screwdriver. And so I drank the screwdriver, and all of a sudden, all the fear I had, all the anxiety, all the inability to have any kind of confidence and feel like I belonged anywhere was just gone. It was like magic. And so I drank that drink, and then I couldn't have a second one. They wouldn't give me one. So I went back and mixed my own. And I didn't drink again until about 6 months later. And we stole a bottle of choke cherry beet wine from my parents in their pantry. And that time I got sick. Didn't pass out, but we were inside a culvert at a park, and we rolled the culvert, and I remember getting injured, and I was hurt pretty bad, but you know, I couldn't wait to do it again. I just felt like, you know, this was cool, you know. And so I think I was an alcoholic right from the start. I think that I just kind of had this idea that this was good for me. So I had a lot of consequences over the years. And the one Sorry. I don't know why I feel a little embarrassed right now. It's weird. Not sure why. So I'm trying not to cry is what's really going, because I'm a really emotional person. And, you know, I had 70 eye arrests in my career. First one was in 1980 in Butte. Second one was in 84 here in Missoula. Third and fourth were here in Missoula in 87. I appeared in 2 courts on the same day to avoid getting a third offense. I never got a felony. They were on my record. They're not anymore, but I'm still drinking and driving. And I went through treatment. I went through a drug treatment program in Galen, got drunk the night I got out because they told me I didn't really have a drinking problem. I had a drug problem. That's pretty crazy. And then there was a outpatient treatment here in Missoula through the Indian Center. And that one actually took, and they insisted that I attend AA meetings. And so I started going to AA and I liked it, but I did not get a sponsor. I did not get into the steps. And I got the girlfriend back that I had lost. The reason I was going to meetings was to impress her and get her back, you know, and I did, and I relapsed again. And that time it lasted like 2.5 years, and it was pretty ugly. And then she was moving to Coeur d'Alene. She had a job there, and so I I didn't want to move with her, and so I broke up with her, and we had a really emotional, kind of really depressing interaction. And I was pretty drunk, and I drove home in a blackout, and she called me in the middle of the night and begged me not to break up with her. And so I went out and did the same thing the second night, broke up with her again. And I went to bed after I got home, and I woke up in the morning and I had this event, this emotional kind of a breakdown. And I just started crying, and I just started begging God to help me and just praying hard. And I think I prayed myself to sleep. And when I woke up, I haven't wanted to take a drink since, which to me, that's a miracle. I mean, that's God. But it's really the steps in this program that have changed my life, and working with others. That's the value of this program. Is it got me out of myself. It got me to care about others, which I really needed to do because I didn't know how to care about myself. And anyhow, the first step was pretty easy. I did a written first step. I wrote down every single consequence that ever happened to me, and then whether or not drugs and alcohol were involved in it. And it was really gut-wrenching. It was really hard for me to do that process. And the second step, I mean, I always had a faith in God. I just didn't really submit to God. I didn't like turn my life over, and the first 3 steps are pretty easy to do. It's like, I can't do this alone. There is help. There is a power that can help me. And the third step is just basically, I want it. And I could get those down, but I couldn't get to the 4th step, which basically means I hadn't done the 3rd step all the way. Knew I was alcoholic, but I just really didn't want to look inside. I was just afraid. And I still have some of that today. And that's what I'm feeling right now, is there's all this stuff in here. And I didn't realize that through life, we kind of store grief, trauma, and, you know, all the hurt and stuff that we experience cellularly in our body. And that stuff has to be dealt with. And that's the inside work they talk about. And that's the hardest of all, is that inside stuff. And sure I want to go with this. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I kept having this feeling like when I would have an emotional disturbance, it was way more intense than I thought it should be. And so I started talking to some people who knew some stuff about grief therapy, and they just said, just spend some time crying. And so I did. I started doing some crying, and I got in touch with a lot of stuff inside me, and it's still moving. It's a pretty profound experience. It makes me emotional all the time. If I'm sitting in a meeting and you're sharing and you're talking about something that hurts you, I feel you're hurt. And I don't know what that is. There's something going on inside me that's kind of uncomfortable sometimes. It's almost like I'm being broke open somehow. And so anyhow, gosh, I'm just freezing here. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Well, anyhow, first, 4-step was the hardest for me to do, but I got it done in like one evening. And I stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning with my sponsor a couple nights after that. And we did the 5th step, 6th step, and 7th step. And the 6th step and the 7th step in the book are just one paragraph. And so we got done with that. And I thought to myself, I need to ask Roger when these character defects are going to disappear. And he said, well, they're not. You just know about them. So anyhow, step 8, I already had the list. Step 9, this is the step that they say we may never complete. This is the one that we can't necessarily meet everybody that's on our list. And so I'm still working on some of them. That's something that we'll be doing the rest of our lives. But really, step 10 is the one that I stay in most. It's what I do every night before I go to bed. Step 11 is really easy, prayer, meditation. And step 12 is the big one. I've been getting asked by a lot of guys to sponsor them, and there's a part of me that says you're saying yes too often. And I'm kind of loaded up with a lot of responsibility now, and sometimes that's a lot of pressure, but that's the only thing that really grows me, is to actually work with others. I don't know what's going on with me right now. It's weird. I'm having all these emotions, and it's really weird. Feeling shaky. I can't explain it. Maybe I just need to cry. This program has been so valuable to me, and almost lost my daughter to alcoholism. She was I had a good cry before I came in here, and I was really emotional, and I thought, this will take care of it. This will like settle you down, and then you can like be clear here. And I don't know what this is. I really don't. This is just, I'm just kind of paralyzed here for some reason. I don't understand it. I'm gonna have to stop. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's going on with me. Yeah, I'm sorry.